Hey there, quick note before we dive in. What you're watching right now is a lesson from one of my courses that I've decided to release completely for free here on YouTube so you don't have to pay a dime. So instead of asking you to buy my course, if you want to show your appreciation, here's a couple of things that you can do. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel. These small actions tell YouTube to share my content with more people, which is a huge help. Also, feel free to check out my recommended equipment links in the description below. If you do purchase equipment from these links, I do get a small commission at no extra cost to you whatsoever. Or if you want to, you can leave me a super thanks or even just hit play on one of my playlists. I know it sounds silly, but if you just hit play on one of my playlists and let it play in the background, even if you're not paying attention, it tells YouTube, hey, people are watching these videos. I'm going to push it out to more people. So even if you just want to do that, I would love it. I would appreciate it so much. And then lastly, if you're looking for more personalized help, I do offer private coaching that you can find in the description of this video. Either way, I really appreciate you, whether you choose to do one of these things or not. Just by simply watching this video, it means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Now, let's get to the lesson. All right, now let's talk about editing inside Adobe Audition. Now, first things first, it depends on the client you're working with or the agent or whoever it is that you're working with, but they're going to want one of two things. They're either going to want, they might want three things. They either will want just one take, and in that case, that's easy. But what if they want multiple takes? Well, okay, then you've got to decide, do they want multiple takes on one file? Or do they want multiple takes on their own files, their own multiple files? Well, if that's the case, how do we create multiple files inside Adobe Audition? Well, it's very easy. As we've already done before, let's go to Waveform, and all we have to do is set up a track, right? So let's just name this T1 for track 1, okay, and then click OK. And then you would go ahead and you would record on this track. But let's say, okay, well, now they want the second or a third take or whatever the case may be on its own track. Well, what do? Well, just come over here to this gray area where you see track 1, go over to the gray area, right click, go to New, go to Audio File, and then go ahead and make another one. So this one will just be T2. We'll click OK. And then now you have your second audio file, and all you have to do to switch between them is just double click them. Now you're on now you're on T1, and now you're on T2, and that way now you have multiple audio files so that you can create take 1 on its own file and take 2 on its own file. Okay, so that's how we do that. And I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this, close. Nope. All right, so now we just have one file here, but there are 2 takes in this one file because in a lot of cases, this is how they're going to want you to deliver your takes, your audio. They're going to say, hey, can we get, 2 or 3 takes, but can you send it all on one file? So, okay, well, how do we go through editing this audio? And of course, going through and editing this audio will allow you to know how to edit any audio inside Adobe Audition. So let's go through step by step all of the little tools and features that you can use to edit your audio. And then at the very end, when I'm done going through all of them, I'll show you how I would have edited this from scratch. So first things first, a key feature that you probably already know, but if you don't, it's very valuable. It's called undo redo. So this is pretty much available in most applications these days. You can use this, but let's say you're just going through Audition, doing stuff, and whoops, you accidentally do something and you're like, I don't even know what I just did, but how did I just get rid of all of that? I don't know what to do. All you have to do is if you're on PC, you're just going to hold down Control Z. And if you're on a Mac, you're just going to hold down Command Z and boom. Your audio comes right back. So whatever the last thing is that you did, it's going to bring it back so that you undo whatever the mistake is that you made. And you can keep cycling through. Like if you've done many things, let's say you've done like 5 things, you can just keep doing Control or Command Z and bring back those 5 things in order in their history that you've done them. And then for whatever reason, if you ended up liking the mistake that you made, you can actually undo the redo. And by doing that, all you have to do is Command Shift Z or Control Shift Z. So Command for a Mac, Control for a PC, and it will undo the redo. But we don't want to do that, so I'm just going to Command Z it and bring it back and start from here. All right, and now how do we scroll in and out of our audio inside Audition? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it, but I'm only going to show you the way that I use and the way that is by far the most efficient and the quickest way to zoom in and out of your audio. So just use the scroll wheel on your mouse, and wherever your cursor is, that's where it's going to scroll into. and then back out. So I'm just going to highlight this so you can see it better. And that's where my audio will scroll into because my cursor is right there. So if I move my cursor all the way over here, that's where it's going to zoom in and out from. So that's the easiest way by far to get through Audition and scroll in and out of your audio. It's much more efficient. It's way faster. That's what I recommend. All right, and now how do you highlight in Adobe Audition? Well, let's take this incredibly exaggerated breath right here, okay? And let's just highlight that breath. And all you have to do is left click, hold down, drag, and then let go. And now you've highlighted this exaggerated, annoying breath. Well, okay, how do we get rid of this breath? What do we do? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. We could right click and then scroll down to where you see silence right here. And you could just silence that breath, okay? Now, I'm going to get back to why this is a problem for some people. The next thing you could do, Control Z, I'm going to bring that back, is you could just hit the delete key on your keyboard. And there's another issue that we're going to need to talk about here that can happen, all right? But let's just go back and let's talk about the first one, which was the silence function. If you right-click and go down to silence and you silence that breath, you want to make sure, absolutely sure, that you have a really good noise floor, you know, whether it's -60 dB or below, or, you know, you don't want there to be a hiss in there, because if you have a bad noise floor or if you have a hiss and you silence that audio, it's going to be so incredibly obvious to the listener on the other end that you sent your audio to that you have silenced your audio. Because if you have a bad noise floor and you have a white noise going on in your audio, like shh, if you all of a sudden silence your audio, it's going to sound like this. Shh, shh, shh. You're going to hear where you've silenced, and it's going to sound really bad and unprofessional. So that's one reason that you want to have a really good noise floor. Okay, Control Z. Next, if I delete this, let's just say if I did something like this, and you know, of course, I'm choosing to do this for this example, but let's say I deleted this. You see how now these two phrases are way too close together? And if I play them back, so you can enjoy them any type of way, any time of day. That's Breakfast Whenevs. It just sounds a little unnatural, right? It's a little too quick, okay? Well, instead, if you're in this position for whatever reason, like let's say you did this in the booth and you said things too quickly, all you have to do is click right in between, you know, right in between where you wish there was some kind of separation, and then you're going to go to Edit, all the way down to Insert, and then all the way down to Silence, and this is 10 seconds, way, way, way too much, but that's okay. Just click OK. And look at that. Now we have all the space in the world to, you know, insert silence and then take away silence. So like now I can decide, you know, I only want to take away that much. Okay, maybe a little bit more. Well, let's see how that sounds. So you can enjoy them any type of way, any time of day. That's Breakfast Whenever. That's good. That's a good spacing right there, okay? But again, this is why you want to have a good noise floor, because if I go back to this massive silence that I added, you know, let's say you have a bad noise floor. Everything up until this silent part is going to be like shh, and even after it. But if I add this silence, it's going to go shh, shh. You know, you don't want that to happen. So you want to have a really good noise floor so that you can deal with things like that. So let me just go ahead and delete that. Okay, so now let's say that you ended up coming out of the booth and you're like, you know what? My first take didn't really fit the specs that they were wanting. I want them to hear my second take first, and then for them to hear my first take second. Okay, well, how do we do that? All right, well, let's find where the takes are separated first off, okay? That's Breakfast Whenevs. America runs on Duncan. Jesse, guess what? Right here. Okay, this is where the second take starts. Okay, well, what will I do? Okay, well, first things first, I'm going to highlight the second take from beginning to end. Okay, so there we go. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab all that silence back there. I can delete it whenever I want. I'm going to right click and I'm just going to cut that. Just cut it out. And then I'm going to go to the very beginning right here. And I'm just going to go all the way to the beginning and I'm going to right click and then I'm going to go to paste. Bam! Now we have the second take first, and that first take is second. Okay, so now this is in the order that we actually want casting to hear it in. Okay, so that's how you move around takes any way that you want to inside the waveform. Okay, so I'm going to undo and I'm going to show you something that you can do inside Audition. Now, I don't want you to rely on this, okay? This isn't something that you want to do all the time. You want to make sure you have good dynamics in the booth. You want to make sure, one thing that you're going to get good at as a voice actor, the more you train with coaches, the more you do things in voiceover, you're going to get really good at doing a level read as you're reading, instead of getting really loud and getting really quiet and having these insane dynamics in your read, which is totally fine in a lot of cases. But there are some pro voice actors that I've recorded in the past that, when they get on the booth, when they get in the booth and on the mic, as they're delivering their read, there's like almost no dynamics. It's almost like you're looking at a compressed file as they're reading, because the loudness of their delivery is so flat. There's like almost no ups and downs, and you see how that peak is incredibly high? Well, when they're reading, man, it's like such a flat, like you never see, it's like I said, it's like compression. You don't see a bunch of peaks going up and down, up and down, up and down like mountains. It's just kind of flat. You will get really good at that. But one thing that you can do is, if you see a crazy peak like this, really the way that you would, deal with a crazy peak like that is with compression. So once you get to the compression section of this course, it'll make a whole lot more sense. But if for whatever reason you need to use this adjust amplitude tool inside Audition, here's how to do it. So if you're like, you know what, this part of the read is just way too loud, how can you deal with that? Well, you see this adjust amplitude, you can move this around wherever you want just by clicking on it and moving it. But what you can do is just take this, and you see it says adjust amplitude. You can either move it up or down or left or right. I'm going to move it left, and check it out. It's making that way, way, way quieter than it was before. So now when I zoom this out, everything looks way more level than it did before if I Control Z. And now you can see back where that peak was, which was insane. Now, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to highlight too much, right? Because if you bring that high peak down, you're going to bring down all of this stuff that was already too low, or maybe not too low, but just lower than this peak. And it's going to sound really unnatural. Like, let's just give that a listen. So you can enjoy them any type of way, any time of day. That's breakfast whenevs. You hear how it dipped? It's like, that's breakfast. You don't want it to dip like that, okay? So that's one thing you don't want to do. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to add a bunch of noise. Like, if this is your noise floor, you don't want to have that be in your, within your highlighted area, because you're either going to bring up or down your noise floor, and that could also sound really unnatural. So you just want to make sure you're being really careful when you're using this technique, but also you don't want to rely too heavily on it. Again, you could just take care of this with compression. So once you get to that section of the course, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, and finally, the last thing that I'll cover here before actually going through and editing this audio is how to bring audio into Adobe Audition. So let's say you open up Adobe Audition and it's just a clean slate, you've done nothing yet. How do you bring audio into Audition? Well, the first way to do this is the way that I don't usually do it. I'm a little lazy, so I do it the really easy way, but there's really no difference, so it doesn't matter. But the first way that I don't usually do is File, Import, File. And then, I see these healthy levels here. I'll double click that, and then bam, there we are. We have it in Adobe Audition. That's great. But let's go ahead and close this, and I'll show you the way that I like to do it. So all you have to do is open up Adobe Audition, and you can see I got everything here. All I have to do now is take the file that I want, which I'm going to go with this file that we were working with earlier. I'm going to left click and drag it, hover it over Audition, and that's going to pop Audition up, and I'm just going to drop it. Bam. That is the easiest way to bring audio into Audition. That's the lazy way. But anyway, it's not lazy. It's the same as doing it the other way. It's just less steps. In my opinion, it's much faster. So that's how you bring audio into Audition. All right, now let's go through this Audition together, and I'll just show you how I would edit this, okay, from start to finish. All right, so here we go. First off, let's just listen to the entire thing front to back. So here we go. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Dunkin' Donuts' unbelievable selection of breakfast sandwiches. Freshly made all day, so you can enjoy them any type of way, any time of day. That's breakfast whenevs. America runs on Dunkin'. Jesse, guess what? Dunkin' Donuts' unbelievable selection of breakfast sandwiches, freshly made all day, so you can enjoy them any type of way, any time of day. That's breakfast whenevs. America runs on Dunkin'. Okay, so obviously I made some pretty exaggerated breaths in there as an example, of what you would do to get rid of them and all that good stuff. But first things first, you hear these leading lines. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. And then this one. Jesse, guess what? Those are called leading lines, as I just said, and they're just there to help you get into an emotion or get into a spec that casting wants you to basically fit or deliver in your read. So let's just take this one. This one is your friendly conversational spec. This just gets you into that bubbly, friendly conversational style read, right? And of course that was a little overboard, but that's pretty much what it's here to do. You pick a friend in your head. This is something that you'll learn when you're coaching with coaches, but you pick a friend in your head or someone in your head that you can be really friendly with. My friend Jesse is who I picked. And instead of just reading the Dunkin' spot, like Dunkin' Donuts, unbelievable selection, which is like flat and nothing to it. But if I'm like, oh my God, Jesse, guess what? Dunkin' Donuts' unbelievable selection of breakfast sandwiches. And you see how it kind of just got me there. It just took me to that place. Well, you don't want to leave them in your audition. They're there, and of course I did it when I was in the booth, but I'm going to go ahead and take these out. Now, there might be some rare cases where you feel like maybe I'm going to leave them in. I don't know what that would be. Talk to your coach about that. But I'm going to take them out. I always take them out. So let's go to this first one. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. And that's more like of a professional style read. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Dunkin' Donuts, unbelievable. You're someone that somebody should listen to and they should really take your advice. Well, that doesn't really fit the specs of this read, right? We'll get back to that. But let me go ahead and just take this out first, okay? And really what you want to do is you want to have about a second to a second and a half at the very beginning of your take and at the very end of your take, okay? It's not very much time, but that's what you want because it gives casting a little bit of time before it gets into it. But also, I found with Windows, I don't know if Mac does this, but I know with like Windows, like with a PC, if you don't leave enough space at the beginning and end of your file, sometimes Windows Media Player, when you go to play a file, can cut off the beginning and ends of your read. Don't know why it does that. So you just want to make sure you have about a second to a second and a half at the beginning and end of your take. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I do that. Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, and that was about enough time. That might be about a second. So Dunkin' Donuts' unbelievable selection of breakfast sandwiches. Fresh. Okay, ridiculous breath, right? All right, well then all I'm going to do, because I didn't do a very quick breath, if this had been like a breath where I'm like, Dunkin' Donuts, and then I just do a quick breath and keep going back into it, then, in that case, you would want to silence that breath. But because I left myself so much space between, I literally can just delete this breath. Of breakfast sandwiches, freshly made all day. And it sounds fine. I might even tighten that up a little bit more, right? But let's just say for sake of this tutorial, let's say that was a very quick breath, right? Let's say it was a really fast breath. And it sounded more like this. Of breakfast sandwiches. Freshly made all, right? There was no space in between. Well, then all I would do, and then I would right click and go down to silence. Now, I made sure to assign this silence function to my S, or to the S key on my keyboard so that I can literally just hit the S key and it'll silence audio. Later in the course, I'll show you how to customize Audition and your keyboard to do this. But for now, I'm just going to click this. And now it's silenced that. Now that's probably too much space, so I would need to tighten that up. Let's find out. Selection of breakfast sandwiches. Freshly made all. That might be actually totally fine, but let's say I wanted to tighten it up. I would just go ahead and delete it and tighten it up. Breakfast sandwiches. Freshly made all. Boom, and now we're off to the races. That's good to go. All right, so let's keep listening. Day, so you can enjoy them any type of way, any time of day. That's breakfast whenevs. America runs on Dunkin'. Jesse, guess what? Dunkin' Donuts. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and take out this leading line because we don't need it. And just for sake of this tutorial, I'm going to take out a little too much. And boom, you see how close that is? That's not enough space. You want at least, just like with the beginning and end of your file, you want at least a second to a second and a half between take 1 and take 2. Just enough time to let casting digest that first one before getting into the second one. So let's see how this sounds. That's breakfast whenevs. America runs on Dunkin'. Dunkin' Donuts on. You see how it went way too quickly, way too fast into that second one. So in this case, what did we do before? I'm going to click right here. I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to go to Insert, go to Silence, and there we go. And now we're good to go. I'm just kidding. We want to delete, obviously, a good bit of this. to where it's about a second to a second and a half between. Now let's try it. America runs on Dunkin'. Dunkin' Donuts on... That's fine. You know, you could leave a little bit more silence in between there if you wanted to, but that's totally fine. All right, so let's keep going. Unbelievable selection of breakfast sandwiches, freshly made all day, so you can enjoy them any type of way, any time of day. That's breakfast. Okay, yet again, another crazy breath. And because I gave myself space between, I can just decide, okay, you know what, about that much. Way, any time of day. That's breakfast whenevs. America runs on Dunkin'. And bam, that's about a second to a second and a half right there. So now the last thing I would do is, well, this didn't quite fit the specs, this first read right here, you know, but it's good to show them I have range and I have the ability to deliver them a different read. That's good. That shows your range. But I want them to hear the conversational one first because it fits their specs more. So again, I'm just going to highlight this. I'm going to go to cut, and then I'm going to go to the beginning, and I'm going to hit paste. And look at that. There's not enough space here at the beginning. So what am I going to do? Edit, insert, silence, okay. And then I'm going to decide how much I want to put there. Dunkin' Donuts. Cool, fine with me. And then now, America runs on Dunkin'. That's a little much, so I'm going to delete a little bit between takes 1 and 2. America runs on Dunkin'. Dunkin' Donuts, unbelievable. Perfect. Okay, and that is how I would have gone through and edited this audio. Now, of course, the last thing to do is process your audio, which we'll get into later in the course. And it's totally up to you. You could have processed your audio first and then edited, or you could edit and then process your audio. It's totally up to you. You just do it whichever way you want. But that's how you edit audio inside Adobe Audition.